Hey everyone, thanks for checking out this video. Although it is a pretty long video, I've done my best to condense it with both speeding up a lot of the time spots as well as getting only the important content in this video. I wanted to show each and every step on how to build a competition level top. I hope you give it a try. If you have any questions, feel free to let me know in the comments, and have fun.
Hey guys, I'm Dave. Welcome back into my shop. Lately I've been getting a lot of questions from people asking about how to make a really good spin top, like a competition type. Well, I've been making them, and I usually use this product right here, which is called Delrin. It also has the name acetal, and it's a very dense, even material, but it's also very expensive. It's great for making a spin top because you can turn the walls really, really thin, and yet it's durable and it won't break. If you can't get your hands on this right now, or if you want to practice with wood, that's a good idea just to kind of get a feel for how to make this before you start using the expensive stuff. That's the only material we're going to use for the top. And the last thing you need is a spin top tip. You can make it just out of the Delrin if you wanted, or you could make it out of wood. It just wouldn't handle competition play. When you're doing high level tricks, they fall, they hit the ground. So I had a friend of mine named Thor make me a steel tip just like this out of stainless steel. If you're interested in buying these, Thor makes them and sells them. I'll put some information in the description about how you get a hold of him to make you one of these if you'd like to make one, a whole top. So I'm going to do this step by step on how I do the process. I hope you turn right along with me. Thanks for watching. All right, first thing we need to do is to cut a tenon on the end of the Delrin so we get it locked up into these jaws. This is my Nova chuck. And even when it's open at its most, it doesn't quite fit the 3-inch size Delrin. And this stock that I have is a 3-inch diameter by 3-inch in length. So that's a good size to start with. It's actually a unique way that I turn it so that we don't have anything waste. We actually cut the tip that's in the jaws. And you'll see that as we go along. But we got to get the tenon, so I'll start off by getting a live center on this side. And the way I cut my tenon is I just kind of press it against the edge here, slide the tailstock up, and just try to center it as best I can, just against the face of the jaws. Moving it slowly, I just kind of make sure that I'm right as best I can, centered against the face of the jaws, just like that. Then I'll tighten it up. When I got it tightened up, it'll spin good here. I'm going to start by cutting at a relatively slow speed. Don't want this thing to fly off. Obviously, it's just held in by pressure at this point. But we'll do it at a slow speed, and we'll cut with real gentle cuts to get the tenon that'll be put into the chuck. Another important thing about that tenon, you don't want to go so deep that it bottoms out on the jaws of the chuck. You just want to go down, in this case, maybe a little bit over 1/4 of an inch. I kind of do everything just kind of by feel, no exact measurements at this point. And check to make sure it's spinning good. All right. And like I said, we'll just cut a little bit off on the end. I'm using carbide tip tools here. You can use high-speed steel or whatever you feel more comfortable with to get it set down to the right size for your jaws. It's good to have a dial caliper to indicate how big that is. I'm almost down to what I want. I'm going to be going for about 2.5 inch is what my jaws will hold. All right, now that I've got a tenon for the jaws to grab onto, I'm going to flip the Delrin over and get it set up into the chuck. I still always use my tailstock as support on the end. All right, now I've got it chucked up, it's spinning. I'm going to true up the whole stock. All right, here during the turning process, I always want to start to shape the tip end. The end here in the chuck is where the tip is. So I come in nice close to the jaws here, And just slowly take off some of the Delrin and move. Up here on this end right here, I'm going to put in, start to do the crown end. And what that is about maybe a little over 1/8 of an inch. Start to slowly take it in all the way. Between 1/8 and 1/4 inch. That's how big that lip should be. As you can see, a lot of this stuff stays on the lathe. Kind of start to shape the crown here. Top edge there. All right, now that we have the general idea of a starting of a shape, it's important to set up the hollowing process. So take a look right here. All right, so we're gonna do some hollowing out. Step one, of course, would be to get the drill bit in there. So I pop out the live center. Get my drill in. The first thing I do is I take a 1/4 inch bit and I drill all the way through the entire piece. That gives me a center on both ends of the top exactly chucked up. My tailstock's not long enough, so I have to take a little bit out, slide it up. Okay, now I'm going to start doing the hollowing out drilling. This is the 3/4 inch Forstner bit that I'm going to go the whole way through, but not through the whole stock, just all the way of the hollowing of the top. Because of the fact that this tip is going to be held in at the bottom, and that shaft length right there, the shank, is 1/2 inch. So when I drill this in, I want it to be, well, because the top is 3 inch, this is 1/2 inch, so basically 2.5 inches are probably more likely just less than 2.5 inches into the top I want to go. And that ensures that when I put the top tip into the body, the screw will still be able to screw into the and hold it tight. Obviously, if I drilled too deep, that shaft would stick out and it wouldn't work properly. So I'm going to set the Forstner bit to go in just under 2.5, maybe I don't know, 1/16 of an inch less. Yeah, that looks so. I'm according to my meat here, 2.4. So let's do it. And again, I've measured the entire length of this Forstner bit needs to go in. So I'm going to bring it up right up to the face of this drill. All right, there we go. The next Forstner bit that I'm going to put in is a 1 inch. And I'm doing that just to make the hollowing process a little bit easier. But I can't do 1 inch all the way down to the last little bit because the way that the top narrows down, I would probably get too thin of a sidewall. So I'm going to go with this one about halfway into the top. That way when I come back with tools later, I can get a nice smooth step between the 3/4 inch up to the 1 inch. And as a matter of fact, I'm also going to be doing 1 3/8 of an inch Forstner bit here in a little bit. And as I said, the depth right here is only important for the hollowing process later. I'm going to be cutting most of it out anyway, but I usually go about halfway in with this one, and it needs to go about probably about another 1/2 inch. All right, last portion of it that I use is 1 3/8 inch. And I just use these sizes because that's what I have handy. And I want this one to go into the depth of about a little over 1 inch, just to the depth of the crown area where it goes, and then I start to funnel down to the tip just till that far. So in this case, it's going to be approximately 1.5 inches. So I'll do this, I'll make a little mark about 1.5 inches here just so I know exactly how far to go in. A lot of times what I will do is I will take a pencil mark and make a mark on the drill shank so I know where to stop. And again, about 1.5 inches is what looks to be about right. There we go. All right, now I've got 3 steps in there. I've got this 1 3/8 for a little while, 1.5 inches deep, and then a little bit down from that is the inch, and then all the way down at the bottom is the 3/4 inch. Now I'm ready to do some more shaping on the crown. To do that, I put the live center back in and send it in between in here. And I do that because I want no flex on this when it's moving. Because if you get any flex while you're working, you might end up with a top that has some wobble to it. So my live center will slide right in there. So what I'm doing now is I'm getting the slight shape of the crown. This right here should be left a little thick at this point. Gonna get the slight shaping and get it down a little ways here. Okay, now it's time to do some hollowing here. I'm going to get rid of the tailstock, get that out of the way. And I'm going to take some of these tools, smaller tools here, and I'm going to come in an angle to hollow this out. So adjusting the banjo. Now there's probably some better hollowing tools on the market. I just have my standard tools here. They do the job. Okay, this hollowing process takes the most amount of time. What I'm doing is I'm coming in with these 3 different tools, and I come in at an angle to kind of get it to blend down from the thickness at the top all the way down to that tip. And I want to make sure that the thickness is at the least 0.15 of an inch. If I can keep it down to that, that's a good distance. Anywhere between 15 and 20, I guess, is what I usually shoot for. And I use these small tools so I can get a really good angle in there, because I want this to have great distribution of mass. Delrin is a very heavy material, and if I get those walls nice and thin, all the mass is on the outside. It's going to increase its spin time, which you want in a competition level top. If you're making out of wood, don't go that thin. If you hit the ground, it's going to break. Maybe a 1/2 inch on wood, depending on the type of wood and species and everything. But I'm going to get going now. I'm going to start hollowing. Take a look. As I mentioned, the hollowing part is by far the most difficult. This is one of the best tools I bought to help this. It's a digital gauge to measure the wall thickness on the inside. So I'm going to start by doing right here on the very outside edge. This is the upper lip on the crown. and it's measuring at 0.33, which is too big. I want that to be about 0.20. So I'm going to be taking that down. But I don't do it yet. What I do is I do all the inside first, and then I clean up the top to make it look really nice at the very crown there. So let's measure the inside. I'm just going to go in here right at the edge, and we're still at 0.43, almost a ½ inch. So that's just way more than we need. I go down though, just to make sure that I didn't go too thin when I was doing some of that hollowing. And right here, before I start to do the slant towards the tip, it is just about a ½ inch. So this thing's still really thick, and I got a lot more hollowing to do. Really important hint about this hollowing: don't press too hard. If you press too hard, you get the flex on the top, and you end up not cutting it evenly on the inside, which will create a wobbly top. So just light pressure as you're going through cutting it out. About a quarter. Okay, now I'm going to kind of clean that crown out a little bit. All right, so I cleaned up this crown a little bit here, and it's sitting at 2.5, so I still got to clean a little bit more out. The inside is 2.3 or 2.4, getting pretty close. So I need to take just a little bit off more just at this top part, because this is almost its finished size. Here I've got to cut a lot more down to get at it. All right, I got that down a little bit on the thin side, but I think we're happy. So I'm happy with the inside. Now what I need to do is just finish up on the crown, and we'll get to flipping it. I now have this right here to the proper dimension, just about 0.2. Let's double check it. Just about 0.2 there. Yep, there we go. And the inside's down to 0.15, and then it gets thicker here at the bottom. But of course, what's going to happen is we're going to take this top and we're going to flip it and clean up the bottom in a few seconds. But before we do any of that, if we want this to look good, I'm going to take sandpaper and go through all the grits just on the upper crown part and on the inside. I like to even do a little bit of wet sanding on occasion. I use a little bit of wax polish on it. All right, after I've gone through the grits of sandpaper, I like to use a little bit of rubbing compound, just because it's plastic here that I can get it really smooth that way. And again, I'm just worried about doing the crown because we have to do a reshaping for everything but the top section here. Okay, now that I've got the crown all shaped, the top all hollowed out, it's now time to flip it and finish the tip section. And unfortunately, the jaws in my Nova don't grab on to this size right here. So what I have to do is I pop it out, switch the jaws, and then grab with an interior grab with the pin jaws right here to hold it nice and tight. So we'll do that now. Okay, now I'm ready to chuck up the top into the jaws. And again, I'm going to be grabbing the expanding right here. Delrin is so tough that it's not really going to cut into it or make any bad marks in it. If it does, I can sand them out afterwards. It's really important to make sure that we get this nice and true. And the way I do that is by putting in here and bringing up the tailstock with the live center. Grabbing the live center and then tightening it up. All right, now check it out. There's a tiny bit of a wobble there, just a tiny bit. Maybe that's as good as I can get, but maybe not. So I like to adjust this a few times, kind of doing a little bit of turning against the live center, holding it tight against the live center and turning it to see if I can get a little bit of a better spin. Theoretically, doing that shouldn't do much. It shouldn't change it because it's supposed to be, the jaws are supposed to open the exact same place and it's supposed to be holding there the same, but I have found with a slight tweak I can make it better. All right, there we go. It's a nice true spin right there. Looks as good as it can be, so I'm going to tighten up the jaws. There we go. Okay, now it's time to cut this end off here. It's important to have light pressure. Okay, now I'm down to the tip section, and it's going to be time to put in the tip. You can see though that this is way too wide. I have to bring it down quite a bit. So what I'll do right now is I'm going to bring it down to the proper measurements. This right here measures just over 6.5. So you can see there's quite a bit of space here. I can take a little bit off of that. Always with the tailstock in place with a live center now. Always. Okay, now it's time to put the tip into the top. The original hole I drilled all the way through was just to give us a center for when we flipped it and our live center can put it in. Well, now we want to put it so that it actually fits this tip, but I don't want any slop in there at all. So what I always do first is drill it one size smaller than this. There we go, just one size smaller. And what that'll do is that'll make sure it's a nice tight fit when I go to put it in. And again, with this one, we want to go all the way through. This should not fit. Doesn't quite, almost, but not quite. Now I'm going to use the proper size, but I'm not going to drill all the way through. I'm only going to go about 3/4 of the way through, so this gets kind of pressed in. This will probably slide in. Yep, slides in because it gets a little bit loose, but it hits that back part where I can press it in. I press it in with my live center. All right, all pressed in. Now what I need to do is come back with the carbide and match that tip shape. So as you can see, we're getting pretty close here. I'm starting to get really close to it. So what I'll do is I'll go real gentle right up to the edge to get the nice profile match, and then bleed it all the way up to the edge. All right, so right here I've got it made it up perfectly right there, nice and smooth, nice and round. Now I just have to take it up from here, up to the corner, being sure not to go around the corner too much, because that's where I had the walls pretty thin. All right, so we now have the top in its basic form. Come back with some sandpaper, maybe, actually it looks like I could clean it up with some tools, but I'm gonna come back, sand that up, get it nice and true. We'll see how it works. All right, go through all the grits to get it sanded up and polished nice. All right, we're at the moment of truth. Got it all polished up, ready to get it out of the lathe and see how we did. The hard part is knowing how thin that little bottom section is going to be. Because we flipped it for the tail section, or the tip section, it may have gotten real thin. It may be perfect. It may be way too thick. We'll see. Looks like the depth was exactly right. That shank right there comes up perfectly. So I'll be able to take my screw right here and screw the tip in place. The tip was pressed in place kind of, as you saw earlier, but screwing it in place ensures that it's going to stay there. All right, screwed in place nice and tight. Let's check some measurements. .221 on the top, that's about right. I would shoot for 0.2. Inside, I like to be at 1.5. Ooh, we got down to 1.2 right there at the top. Going down, 1.3, 1.4, 1.5, 1.6, 1.7, that's nice. And then as it goes down, 2.8, 2.9, about 0.35 right when you get down to the tip section, as far as you can go. So it obviously has put a lot of our weight right down here, but of course up at the crown, all the weight's on the outer edge, which would be a pretty solid spin top. I like these to weigh around 120, between 100 and 120 grams. Got a scale back here. I'll just check it quick. Feels heavy. We'll see. It's 130, so a little on the heavier side, and that would be just because I didn't get it all hollowed out down there. But in this case, it almost had to be this based on the size of the tip right here. So, moment of truth, will it spin? Let's see. This is Spintop string. If you don't have any of this and you want to have some cool colored Spintop string, check out dazzlingdave.com. It's my website. I sell Spintop strings. By the way, when you get a Spintop string, its length is pretty random. You have to set it up for the specific top that you own. Wrap it around the crown, down. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. This one's going to be about right here, I'm guessing. Let's see. Wow, spinning pretty true. Now, if you make yours and it's got a slight wobble or a slight shake to it when you play it, you can add balancing putty to the inside of the spin top. This one doesn't need it. This one came out really nice. Maybe a slight flutter at the top, but wow, it's really good. Spins nice and true in the hand, spins a long time. That's the nice thing about having Delrin. It's got a really consistent material. If you have a wood here and you've got different thicknesses of the wood based on how the tree grew, you might have wobble just because of that. Well guys, I hope you enjoyed watching making a spin top professional level. This is a fixed tip version. You can get spin tops that have ball bearings in them. That's a whole nother day. This one, the fixed tip professional level spin top. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you have any questions, put them in the comments down below. I'll be happy to answer all your questions. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe.